Nice to be here in my home city. I'm working, as you have heard, about 30 years in this area, and mainly with pre and primary school teachers, but also now in the university. So we try to create outdoor place-based platforms in Singapore. I'm working with Nanyang University and Principal's Academy in Singapore. We have connection in Shanghai. In Beijing Junior University and Capital Normal University. And if we talk about sustainability, I think it's very important to use the landscape, learning in, about, and for landscape. And of course, we have research evidence from medical areas that we have a good impact of green areas on stress, blood pressure, and so on. But also, when you work with cognitive, with learning, but we don't burn books. Of course, you use laboratory and indoor areas too. So it's a complement to the traditional ways of learning. But there is no theory of learning today that says that the learner must sit in the same classroom, listening to a teacher, have time-limited lessons, and work on the same task. The science of learning is today in a linear, called von linear phase. It's 300 years. We had to find perhaps Charles Darwin with a more axiomatic and explanatory theory of learning. There are a lot of theories about learning. So this is a little problem for teaching. I mean, if you talk about why an apple is falling, you can have the new laws of Newton, but the learning is very complicated. But we have a lot of evidence that if you create more green areas, green learning areas, it is a positive thing for thinking. But I think it's very important then to have courses and to give these teachers a hands-on experience. And this Symbiocity, we talk about green things, nature, to have plants, to seed is a good opportunity, but there are also cultural context. Every country has their own ideas about learning and teaching. But when we have students from China, from Japan, from Singapore, and from Malaysia and Vietnam coming here to Linköping, it's a very good thing to talk about global health, global problem, and what can we do together, because it's a cultural context. Education is culture. So this is the message here, is how to make the plantation as a part of the curriculum. Put this in the curriculum, because they are indoor learning, indoor teaching. So my focus is the place of learning, the way of learning, the process of learning, and the object of learning. So we look at these three things when we educate, and we give them tools for that when we go outside to the schools, preschools, from preschool up to the university. So here we can, today we use the city parks, like in the Singapore Botanical Garden, Children's Garden. We can go to the Gothenburg Botanical Garden. We have mathematics, language, physics outside too. And there are coming a lot of books now, how to use the outer environment. Not only as we have a recreational part of this experience, but also how could you use it in learning, in the way of learning. Place-based active learning for health. We can see I have some research about declining of stress levels. The cortisol level goes down in green, variated environment when you have water. It's like a greenhouse effect on the brain. And I can say that sometimes when we talk about learning, this is your brain. To be or not to be in the outdoors, that's the question. Do you use it in learning context? And we know a lot about your brain, but we don't take this knowledge to teaching. We have, my dream is that a landscape architect who know a lot about planning, if they can cooperate with people who know something about learning, these people could cooperate with someone who knows something about health. We live in, it's like sausages, we live in a different part of it, so it's very important to integrate this. So my dream is that we connect high touch and high tech We have a project from Wallenberg Foundation now, how to use iPads in Helsingborg. We have learning places, so the children go out there, because we talk about the obesity bomb has exploded, but nobody have heard the explosion. We have the sugar bomb. And if we create more movable learning environments in nature, in landscape, and greenness is very important, but we don't know why. We talk about the biophile hypothesis when we live in the Serengeti area. The man is a social dependent ecological creature, so you also have culture, but you also have an evolutional part of it. But to combine this high tech and high touch is a research project now. So we try to see what's happened with these children and teachers if we use the best of the high technology and the direct contact. Not only to see and listen, but also to smell, taste, and feel. I mean, the sensory routes to knowledge demands a bodily meeting. The body and mind had to meet the soil. So this is one part of the learning project. And when we talk about learning and teaching, I try to integrate. This is we learn, even when you sleep, you learn. This is a learning perspective. We can have a lot of research, qualitative and quantitative research about learning. The best place is to sit in a green variation, in a green area with water and natural sound, because we have also the sound pollution today. The frequency of the sound, if you have a too high frequency, it's like a city or Orchard Road in Singapore with a lot of cars. But when you come away from the waterfall, you can sleep. I mean, the brain is so funted. So the learning thing is very important. But then we put, on the learning place, we put, this part is how you communicate, the team building and leadership. Because if you're a teacher, you had to handle a group outside. When I was in Beijing, we have language, we work with language in the parks of Beijing, how to work with the prepositions, Anna in German, you do it with your body, it's a lot of bodily learning, and of course, if more of the body is involved, you remember things better. So we have this personal social development and team building. We talk about learning, and learning is a part of this. And the next circle here is the environmental education. And with environmental education, I mean the place of learning, I mean the garden, preschool yard, schoolyard. If you have, now in Singapore, they have a big area they have built in close to the waterfront, an indoor area with waterfalls, but you can also go outside in the botanical garden without any inbuilt things. So this is the environmental part, how to learn about the environment, recycling, thinking in recycling, but also it's a question of the place, because the place can be the city in the suburban area. And then the next thing is to put on is the health perspective. If you don't feel well, if you have a too high level of cortisol, the stress hormones, you can't learn anything, you forget everything. So my medical doctors in the medical faculty here in Linköping, they make research about stress, because a place is connected to creativity, a place is connected to topophilia or topophobia. Some places are dangerous to be in. And it's a connection to culture. So we look about the health perspective, the blood pressure, we look at stress, we look at a lot of things that happen in the body. But over this, this ring, this circle, is the health of the earth, the global health. If you talk about water, if you talk about soil, and if you talk about the air you breathe. If you have a sick earth, then you have a sick child. Then you can research on different of these circles, but they are interconnected in a time, space, and place continuum. We talk about time, space, and place. So it's very important when you educate teachers that they can see everything is depend on each other. And perhaps we have another ring, but I mean the earth that we live in is very important for all, and that the place is clean, that we understand what things comes from. What is your address? What is your water address? Do you know that? Because I asked the teacher, what is the water address? The water is going up in clouds and going down, but a lot of the water, we can't see the water. What is your soil address? And what is your address from the air you breathe? So, I mean, there are a lot of interesting questions connected to sustainability, but I mean that we had to have much more of the practical learning to learn about landscape, in landscape, and about landscape. So the sustainability is a key thing in learning, but you had to do it in practice, not only in theory. We talk too much. In school, teachers, they like to talk. In the university, they are very clever to talk. So the muscles here are very trained. We have trained muscles here, but then we have other muscles that we have to train. But what do we say? What do we say? What is the talk of children today? What do you say in the classroom or outside the classroom? And of course, you have to integrate the brain, the cognitive one, because here something happens, but we are not so sure the ways of the impulses in the brain. It depends what theory you have about learning, cognitive learning, you have a lot of other sociocultural learning, but you also had to implement, you had also to integrate the heart. I think I have a heart here. You have to be emotionally involved. And this is very important for learning, to get emotional connection to recycling, to man, to plant, to animals. And if you have a symbiosity, I think, is it possible to make an international network when you create this type of research? The photosynthesis is one of the most, I think, the most important reaction in the world. But what is photosynthesis? Children have it's difficult how to learn this. As a biologist and geologist that I have in my background, how to explain complicated things. So this is, this is only a metaphor, and of course you have the whole Earth here. This is the ball. You are sitting listening, but we know that the body, if you learn something, the body needs to move. You can learn by moving. So moving is very important, but not only, it's a lot of things happening in your brain when you are sitting, but moving helps the brain to think. Then we have, I will show you, to be indoor or outdoor, that's the question. Landscape meets mindscape, and when mindscape and landscape will meet, then you have a learnscape. And here you have, of course, we have a lot of evidence-based knowledge. I have an article, if you're interested, where we have collect health evidence, learning evidence, so we can see not only from Sweden, but international studies. And in the area of outdoor education, there are about 1,000 PhD theses today in the world. We have some here from the Nordic countries. So this is what we try to make network with people, but to be there. I know a lot of Sami people in the north of Sweden, so I have learned a lot to be with them in the place, not only read about them. And therefore it's very interesting to have an international community. This is the drugs, of course, but I mean that nature also is a green Losec. If you go to the nature, we have animal therapy today, we have a lot of this type of, we have green therapy, therapeutical gardening in hospital today. So it's important to counterbalance the ecological illiteracy in the society. The educational system is therefore the most important place to implement the ideas of the green cultivated mind. I will talk about the green cultivated mind as a foundation for Earth in mind and the place-based education system, or call it perestroika in Russian, because there's always a fight between the indoor and outdoor people. I hope that we can together develop this, and we can reflect, and we can rethink, and we can reform. So this is, I will show you the last picture here. The evolution of man. If you can see the biophilia hypothesis, what's happened. I don't know, is it 1 minute left or 2 minutes? Yeah, then I can show you. I don't like, this is not pedagogical, but I will show you. This is Shanghai. It's very nice to meet the Chinese students, the preschool teachers and students from Shanghai. Here's the city of Shanghai, where to go, because it's a where to be there. What is the green things? It's a conference. This is in the Singapore city. You can have outdoor there too. It's possible, but of course I would like to have some green and water. And children like a water area has a very high level of affordance. It's like a magnet for children. If I give them, they go there. And here's the evolutionary garden in the botanical garden. We talk about the man's evolution in landscape. And this is the connection between water and the child. I think it's also important to make a nice design in these learning environments. And here is a school with 1,000 children. They have green things inside the house, and this is a way to get contact with nature in the city. I don't know if you have been there, some of you perhaps. It's a hot weather, but it's nice to see it, feel. The children, they're not so afraid, but the parents, they go away. It's always a parent's problem. And this is Confucius. Confucius talk about hand, heart, health, and head, not only John Dewey. So we have a lot of tradition in the Confucius. And this is the last poem. Eyes can see, ears they hear, but hands know best how it is to touch. Your skin knows best when somebody is close. You need your whole body to learn. The brain can think and maybe understand, but your legs know best how it is to walk. Your back will know how it feels to carry. You need your whole body to learn. If we are to learn the basic about our planet Earth, then it is not enough with words. We must be able to get in close. You need your whole body to learn. So this is, of course, we have to reflect and rethink and reform, but I think it's a need to hide the level of importance of landscape and place in education, from preschool and in teacher training. So this is my, if you're interested, I can give you some more about the material, research background, why do we do this? Of course we have a lot of research, but the problem is to put this research in education. Today we drive 1930 was Volvo in Sweden, instead of driving perhaps 2013 years Volvo. So the education system is traditional. But I'm glad that the Bologna University and some other university in the world try now to have this experiential learning project where we work with all school subjects outside as a part of the teaching and learning curriculum. So it's nice to be here, and perhaps we can do something together with this plant green areas in urban, because we need to be in the urban area. The wilderness is far away from a lot of children. Even in Norway, Sweden and Denmark, they were inside. I would say that's the same inside computerized child that we have in big cities, even in small areas. So the teachers had to show them, because if they don't have parents that take them out to the animal, to the cow, to the horse, to the plants, they know nothing. So I think it's a question of surviving. Thinking in recycling and thinking about learning when you use both the hand, heart, health and head. So, I think this was the last one.